Good morning. Hope you're all having a great day. I find myself at Wentworth Falls today, and I'm actually in a silver NB MX5 for the day. My car's off getting a service, so Andrew and the team at Blue Mountains Mazda have been kind enough to lend me this car for the day. And I thought it'd be cool to see what traits have made it all the way through the MX5 generations. So if you're unaware, the NA was the first generation that came out in 1989. We then have the NB, which this is, the NC, and then currently the ND. And I just wanted to compare them and see where Mazda have really improved on the MX-5 and the things that have made it all the way through the car, or through the generations of different cars. So we're going to take it for a spin around the mountains here in Sydney. There is thunder off in the distance, so let's hope the weather stays kind to us. But yeah, let's take it for a spin. So what's the NB like coming back from an ND? Straight away you can see the lineage of the MX-5. So you can see where the traits from this NB generation have come through to the RF. Now it's actually kind of cool that this is a hardtop as well. So it's kind of like driving my car's grandparent. It's weird. You get the point. So you see the traits that have made it all the way through, the NB, the NC, then the ND. To drive, the gearbox is very nice, so you can see why people were certainly wrapped in it way back when and from the very start. The clutch is quite a bit heavier. Personal taste on that, whether you like it or not, I don't mind it. The throttle is extremely long in this car. Now, granted with the ND you have drive-by-wire, so manufacturers can cheat a little bit. So if you put the throttle halfway, sometimes it's actually 90% open. Gives you the false impression of speed or power. Now, whether Mazda have done that, who knows, whether they would admit it if they've done that, I doubt it. But what that means is you jump in this car, and because it's your traditional throttle cable, the throttle is very, very long. Not really that much of an issue, it's just something to remember. I want to talk about probably the best thing about this NB over the ND, and that is steering. Now, we all know the MX-5, it's a driver's car, people have banged on about it often enough, including myself, but that is what it is. It's meant to be a car that you enjoy going to drive. Now, the one thing that you have your hands on the most is the steering wheel. So steering feel is actually extremely important. What I found with my ND is it's very, very light. Now, that would suit probably 90% of the buyers in all fairness. It is something, however, that I feel just missed the mark, and especially when you want it to be a driver's car, the steering is extremely important. Not to say that it's inaccurate, you know, it'll go exactly where you want it to go, it's just that it doesn't feel that great doing it. Now, I've been driving this MB for probably around an hour now, and I love the steering. If Mazda could somehow lift the steering from this MB and throw it in my car, I'd be so happy. It honestly feels unreal. It's just got that real weighty nature to it. It's very accurate still. You know, the car still feels very nimble and light on its feet. It'll dart around to where you want it to go. It just has that hefty, solid steering feel though. You know, you can feel what the front wheels are doing, which obviously is a nice thing to have, especially in a driver's car. So it's one thing that the MB definitely has over the ND. Steering, tick. Brakes, I'd say it's same really. I don't think there's much of a difference between the two cars. I don't find the brakes particularly special in the ND. They're there and they work. You do need to get up them though, and that's something that this car is exactly the same. Seating position in this car is extremely comfortable. One thing this car easily has over the RF is visibility. So So when you take a look behind you, this is still the hardtop, but it's just glass. So there is no real blind spot to speak of, which I know is something that the soft top owners really do rag on really do rag on the RF for. It's non-existent in this car, so if you want a hardtop but you feel the ND's hardtop is just too much of a hassle with its blind spots and the flying buttresses, perhaps an MB is worth a look in for you. Space-wise, the difference between the NB and ND, it's actually quite interesting. I feel that there's quite a bit more space in this car if you're taller. So if you find that the ND is a little bit too snug for you, you can't quite get your seat back far enough, I think it's worth checking out the NBs, because it does feel like there's more room for you, especially for a passenger. There is more leg room there for sure. Width-wise, not so much though. The seat is very snug, so this center console is pressed right up against the seat, as is the door. So if you find that you don't quite fit an ND seat width-wise, I don't think you're going to have too much luck in the NB. Height, definitely. So this car, being a 2001 model, is now 16 years old. Now that's not an inconsiderable amount of time. It's not a lifetime, but it's a decent amount, and the car still feels nice and solid, you know, it feels tight. You throw it around some corners, it still handles very nicely. There's minimal squeaks and rattles there. Obviously is squeaks and rattles being a clip-on hardtop, but nothing too bad. Gear shift is nice, brakes work really well. As I say, the throttle's a bit long, but that could just be a trait of the car, I guess, going back to a throttle cable. You can feel the power difference between the generations though. I know that my car's not going to set any drag strip records or anything like that, but it is amusing coming back to something like this where there really actually is a very big lack of power. Now, I'm not saying it takes away from the driving experience, but if this is the experience people have had with MX-5s in the past, I can understand why they just automatically write them off, which is a foolish move on their behalf, because personally I've thought the ND doesn't actually seem that sluggish to me. You know, it'll zoom away from lights, no real drama, it's got plenty of get up and go. I don't really get what the problem was, but I can see now why people would have formed that opinion from driving these older cars. And I know that sounds extremely negative, I don't mean it to be, it's just I can now better understand their point of view. Until the ingredients are the same, so everything feels so familiar. It really does feel like the ND is an evolution of the car. So credit to Mazda, you obviously got it right off the bat. You knew what you were doing, and the car, it feels like a really fun driver's car, and that hasn't been ruined with the new generation. And keep in mind, Mazda's main aim for this car was to go back to the original generation, make it feel like it did way back when. So this is a second generation car. It's not the the Genesis, the Phil Collins of the MX-5 world, but I think it's back far enough that you feel where Mazda were. They've then decided that they've drifted away from that, and they've tried to bring the current generation back to where their roots were, and I think they've done a really good job of that. So that nonsensical rubbish basically means if they were trying to make the current generation feel like an older generation, they've nailed it. Probably more simple. So my time with the MB is now coming to a close. Once again, huge thank you to Andrew and the team at Blue Mountains Mazda for lending me the car for the day. It's been really cool to see the elements of the MB that have filtered down to the current generation MX-5. And just to see the differences between the two and how far Mazda have come in 16 years in this case. The ND obviously has a lot more power, a lot more torque. The interior's updated, it's very nice, very comfortable, but that's not to take anything away from the MB. You know, the interior here is very nice. It's minimalistic, but it's very nice. The hardtop version I'm using today, it's comfortable along the highway, keeps the wind out, you can't complain. The one thing the MB trumps over the ND easily is steering. The steering in this car is unreal, and I wish that Mazda would find a way to bring the steering from older generations back to their current generation and future generation MX-5s. That'd be the one thing that I feel a little bit nostalgic on. But apart from that, I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. If you've liked it, please give it a thumbs up. If you like, subscribe to the channel. If you happen to have an NA or an NC Series MX-5 and you're willing to let me take it for a drive, please get in touch. Until then, I hope you have a great day. See ya.